there were a bunch of stories. Carson Wentz, shotguns from Cabela's. And in this PC world that we live in, because, we're nothing if not PC anymore, a group has sent shotgun locks to the offensive lineman now.
Hey, probably not a bad idea. Don't need those guys driving around with them if they're not allowed. They don't have their carry, permits.
Don't do that. But stories about gifts of shotguns and shotgun locks are right up our next guest's alley. And that man would be Jimmy Kempski from PhillyVoice.com, as he's the Eagles beat writer from there. And he joins us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Jimmy, how are you, pal?
Good, guys. How are you?
Good, thank you. So let's start there with the what did you think of Carson Wentz's gift to his linemen? And were you amused, or did you raise an eyebrow at how quickly the PC police came in to clean that up?
As long as he doesn't give one to Nigel Bradham, then I think it's all good.
So true. Hey, you've been doing great stuff on PhillyVoice.com with a lot of stay or go stories of who stays, who goes. Scott and I were talking about it in the break, how much we've been enjoying that. Let's start with the head coach. Stay or go?
Well, I didn't get to him yet, but he'll be tomorrow morning. I actually just finished up all the other positions today. The last one will be posted in like an hour or two. I think that's the specialist.
Okay, don't give
it
away.
And then we're going to do the head coach and the defensive coordinator. But it's fine, I'll tell you. So, yeah, I think he's going to stay. I mean, he's been on the job 1 year. I don't think there's been anything egregious that he's done horribly this season. And I think with the way that he's brought along Carson Wentz and frankly, I think they got more out of the offense this year than they should have. Over, when you look at the skill position players that they have, and a rookie quarterback from an FCS school that missed almost the entirety of the preseason, found out he was going to be the starter after they traded away the regular starter like a week before the season began. I mean, this offense really had a chance to be absolutely dreadful, and at times the play of some of the players was, but in terms of the number of points that they were able to put up and the way that they were able to move the ball, I think he is really getting hammered a little bit unfairly by some people.
Well, and I know, we talked about this before we went to the break, and I did want to get into it with you, the issue of running the football, because I think the last question that Doug was asked yesterday was basically, hey, running the ball has served the Cowboys well this year. Is that something that you think you should emulate moving forward? What did you think of his answer to that?
Well, he kind of agreed to the question, if I recall correctly. The question was, it served the Cowboys well. And, obviously the Cowboys have a team that's built to run the football with their offensive line, in my view, actually is okay. Like, it's pretty good as a pass protection unit, but they're awesome in run blocking. And then obviously they have Zeke Elliott, who can run the ball phenomenally. And, what that does, and actually they had the same success doing what they're doing this year in 2014 when DeMarco Murray led the NFL in rushing. And, they were able to basically the way that they strategized that was they wanted to keep their defense off the field because their defense really stunk in 2014. It's a little bit better now than it was then, but that was part of the deal. Was they wanted to run the ball, keep the clock moving, control the football, keep their defense off the field so they wouldn't get gashed on the other side of the ball. And they made it easy on Tony Romo, who had a really tremendous season that year because he wasn't asked to do a ton. This year, they're about 50-50 in terms of run-pass. They actually have the highest run percentage in the NFL. So, yeah, I think that's a formula for success in the NFL that's been around for decades, frankly. And, there are teams that can really run the ball well and other teams that will struggle at times to do that. The Eagles have a good offensive line, in my view. They obviously don't have a running back that they can count on, rely on the same way that the Cowboys do with Zeke Elliott. But, again, that is a formula that has worked in the past with a lot of other teams in NFL history. And I think the Eagles would be smart to kind of continue to build up that running game so they can make life easier on Carson Wentz.
Hey, Jimmy, as we're looking, as Pete said, looking at your stay or go pieces, which, like he said, is really good. I've enjoyed reading that. The wide receiver position, it's interesting because a lot of fans seem like they're ready to cut ties here with Nelson Aguilar. And to a certain extent, I think with DGB, both of those guys you have as guys that you think should stay. Lay out the argument for keeping them.
Well, I don't think they should stay on the merit of the way they've played, clearly.
Right, right.
But in terms of whether they will stay or not, I think they're going to stay.
Okay.
And the reason for Aguilar is very simple, because if you cut Aguilar, he's going to cost well over $4 million against your cap in 2017. If you keep him, he just costs $2 million. So, do you want to take an extra, I think it's like $2.5 million hit just to get him off your roster? And the answer to me is no. I mean, even if you just don't ever play him, that money is worth getting another player in who can help your football team in some way. If you want to get rid of him after next season, then sure, go right ahead and do that. And also, they just don't have any depth there. And they have one receiver who's worth keeping, in my opinion, in Jordan Matthews. And in my view, he's only he's a good number 3 receiver. I don't think they have. I don't think they have 2 receivers that can play competently on the outside, and that's why you hear so much talk about Deshaun Jackson and all the other receivers that are going to come available in free agency this season. Now, personally, I'm not a big DGB fan either. He's 6'5", he's 240. Really, the one play this season, I mean, there have been several like it, but the one play that really stood out to me was in the Lions game, Week 5, where they threw him an end zone fade. He was being covered by a shrimpy cornerback. His name was Nevin Lawson. He was like a 5'9", 180-pound guy. So Dorial Green-Beckham had like 60 pounds on this guy and like 9 inches, and the little corner out-muscled him. And there's just no way that can happen. After that game, Frank Reich was asked about it. He said that play's got to be made 9 times out of 10. We just haven't seen him make that play at all.
Yeah,
so,
which is unbelievable.
He's 6'5" and 240, but he plays like he's 5'10". So, he's a guy that I think there's something to work with there. But, again, he's been kind of disappointing. And, that you can understand why the Titans traded him for Dennis Kelly. So, those are 2 guys that I personally, you're going to always look to upgrade, but they just don't have anything else at wide receiver. You look at Craig Johnson has done nothing since. Paul Turner's a guy that people love because he had a good preseason, but he's slow and he's short and he doesn't contribute on special teams. So that's a guy that you're always going to look to upgrade as well. So you just can't get rid of everyone in one fell swoop and fill it in with undrafted free agents. It's just not realistic to do. So that's why I have those 2 guys staying. But in time, you're going to get rid of them.
Who do you think will be one of the – I guess let's put it this way. Where do you put the odds that Deshaun Jackson is back?
I think they're going to do it. I really do. I don't know about a percentage, but if I were to if we're going to say, is it greater than 50 or is it less than 50? I would lean toward them bringing him back because I think it makes a lot of sense for the way that he would fit within this offense. They don't have a guy, obviously, who can take the top off the defense. And, even if he doesn't make a ton of big plays for you next year, if they bring him back, at a minimum, the defense has to respect the threat of it. And no defenses respect what the Eagles have at the wide receiver position to take the top off the defense. So they're always crowding the line of scrimmage. It hurts the run game. It hurts the short to intermediate pass game. His presence alone opens up the short and intermediate game for guys like Ertz and for Jordan Matthews, even for guys like Darren Sproles, and again, the running game. So he does so much for an offense just by him being on the field. And then, of course, it seems like Deshaun is open to coming back as well. So I think it's a match that just kind of works for both parties.
Last one on the offense. You have Ryan Matthews as go, which I think a lot of people probably agree with. So where do they fill in at running back? Through the draft?
Yeah, I think that's the draft. I haven't looked at what's available in free agency, but this draft is so absolutely loaded with running back talent, both, early on, whether it be first round, second round, third. I think, any round in the draft, there's going to be somebody there that's a good option at running back. There's just so many of them, and there's so many good ones that I think they can get a good one in the draft as opposed to spending, a lot of money in free agency.
Jimmy Kempski with us, PhillyVoice.com. You can follow him on Twitter as well by going to @Jimmy Kempski. That's Kempski. Best part of your stay or go, Jimmy, is that it's color-coded for idiots like me. So green is stay, red is go, and orange is no need to release before training camp. But ideally, the Eagles will have found an upgrade. And Jimmy goes through all the positions, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, you name it. I'll go to the defensive side, though, Jimmy, because some news coming out today that Nolan Carroll has indicated that he'd like to return to the Eagles. You have him currently listed in red, which would mean see you later. But tell me your thoughts on Nolan Carroll's comments today and how that corner position shapes up next year in your mind.
Yeah, I wasn't there for that today, but apparently he said that his agent has talked with the Eagles. I don't know what that means. I mean, he may want to come back and I don't doubt that his agent has had conversations with the Eagles, but I think that's a guy that you can't look at Nolan Carroll and what he's done this season and look at what he is as a player at the stage of his career. He's going to be 30 this offseason, so he's getting up there in age. I'd say he's probably declining, and he wasn't really ever a world beater to begin with. I think if you look at him as a potential starter next year, no. I mean, it's just not the option that I would go with. If he's going to sign, say, something like a non-guaranteed deal, I'll jump ahead for a second here. So you look at the NFL draft. I mentioned before that running back is really deep and talented. The other position that's really, really good in this draft, deep and talented, is corner. So if the Eagles have their sights set on drafting a corner or two, but you can't always depend on that. You can't always depend on a corner being one of the best guys on your board when you're on the clock. So if their plans are to get one or two of them in the draft, certainly they can do that possibly, but they have to have a contingency plan in place if it just doesn't shake out that way, or if they're unable to get the guy that they're looking at in free agency. So a guy like Nolan Carroll, if you can sign him for a non-guaranteed deal as sort of a contingency plan, then sure, you bring him back. But if you're going to sign him to multi-year deal with some guaranteed money in there, there's no way I would do that. So Nolan Carroll, I mean, he may very well want to be back. His agent may very well be talking with the Eagles, but I think the Eagles would be wholly uninterested in bringing him back unless they're able to get rid of him pretty easily.
We're spending a few minutes with Jimmy Kempski from PhillyVoice.com. He's the Eagles beat writer out there. Go to PhillyVoice.com and check out his great articles, including grocery shopping, 5 college players to watch who could interest the Eagles in the 2017 draft, sort of a roadmap for Jimmy provides us on who to keep an eye on as these college bowl games go by. So Jimmy will stay on defense. For so many years, Eagles fans were like, we just need a linebacker, we need a good linebacker, and you address both linebacker positions inside and outside. Your take on where the Eagles are set right now at linebacker and what they need and what they're good with.
Well, yeah, obviously Jordan Hicks is a player that, along with guys like Malcolm Jenkins and Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, he's one of those guys that you build your defense around. So he's not going up anywhere. Obviously, he's had 2 strong seasons to start his career. Obviously, he's going to be sort of a linchpin of your defense. And then beyond him, you have Nigel Bradham, who obviously we mentioned the aforementioned Nigel Bradham. We're glad that Carson wants to buy him a gun. He had the arrest at the airport, and he allegedly punched the Cabana boy. So, whether there's, NFL action upcoming for him next season remains to be seen. But clearly he's a guy who, in my opinion, had a good season last year. He had a similar season to what he did in his best season in Buffalo under Jim Schwartz. So that's a guy that I think, what they were looking to get out of him in free agency this offseason, they got exactly what they wanted. So that's a guy that I think will be back, of course. And then the one guy that I think a lot of people think might be on his way out is Michael Kendricks. I disagree. He signed a contract relatively recently, it was, during the 2015 offseason. So the money, again, similar to Aguilar, but it's not as bad with Kendricks. It's just financially it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to get rid of him, just to, outright release him. If you release him, you save, I think it's about $1.5 million if you get rid of him. Take a decent amount you take a decent cap hit. Or dead money rather, if you release him outright. If they're able to trade him, the same thing. They'd save about $1.5 million. If they can get something decent enough in a trade for Michael Kendricks, sure, go right ahead. But in terms of what you'd save by getting rid of Michael Kendricks, it's just not worth it. I think he's worth at least $1.5 million to keep on your roster. In 2017, he really struggled early in the season. Had a horrific game against the Lions, but I think as the season progressed, he got better. He's a guy that you don't really want him on the field for 100% of the snaps, but he is a guy who can do something. I think they actually kind of misused him a little bit, or rather didn't use him the way that to the best use of his skill set. For example, he's a guy that I think the best thing that he does is blitz the quarterback. And they had him rush the passer under 10 times this season. So I don't think Jim Schwartz is getting the best usage out of what he does well. I think that he's got to do a better job of that in 2017 if indeed they do keep him.
Well, we're getting the best use out of you, pal. Jimmy Kempski from PhillyVoice.com. He's been a guest on our show a few times this season. We certainly appreciate your time. Before I let you go, since we didn't really dive too deep or deep at all into Eagles-Cowboys, it is Pick the Perfect Score day for us on 97.3. You can't win the money, but I will get what your score prediction is for the Eagles-Cowboys game this Sunday.
I don't remember what I said it would be. That's how much I care about this game. But I did have the Eagles. I did have the Eagles winning. The Cowboys said that they were going to play their starters, and Vegas disagrees. I mean, because the Eagles are favored by 4 or 5 points, I think.
Right.
They're favored by 4. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So obviously they think that that the Cowboys, while they may play their starters a little bit, I think come second half it's going to be Mark Sanchez time, and I think the Eagles will win this game. I forget what I had to pick as, but I think they'll win, and they'll under season on a 2-game win streak.
Well, Twitter will be fun to watch on Sunday with you, Jimmy Kempski. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys.